Good morning, everybody. It's Rich220.
And you have to break this down. This is like 2
And
hours.
there was a video that was
Was this
posted
one
tonight
watching
that
earlier,
I actually watched
Yeah, that's what we're watching. 50 minutes.
at a
50
rather
minutes.
late
50
time
minutes.
Yeah.
and didn't see it. And, well, finally I got around to seeing it. Okay. So, JB, I know the information you've gotten is probably like only partially factual. But I'm a 54-year-old man, and
Well, I senior citizen, asshole. You still
I
got 10
really
years.
don't have time to play with anybody's mind, okay? I don't sit there and
You're listening
try
in?
and dig on people
Which is
because
good.
they have anxiety issues or they have
You
what
have
they call it,
excuses,
where you
dude.
read things backwards. You know what I'm
It's
saying?
called
Like
dyslexia,
sometimes
asshole.
that's what I see.
I mean,
Sometimes I have
and you don't have
anxiety.
it.
And sometimes
You don't have
I get
anxiety
confused
either.
because I read things backwards.
I have
And
anxiety.
may wind up.
Listen,
betraying
dyslexia
me
ain't
as having an
sometimes I read
attitude
things
towards
backwards,
somebody.
dude. My daughter has this shit.
Hey, babe.
Diagnosed.
You could vouch for me. Am I antisocial?
Sometimes.
Do I like people?
No.
Do I get nervous around people?
Yes.
Anti-smart.
Haha! And that too. Look at my choice in women.
Well,
But
that's
really, I
supposed
don't.
to be.
So far, he's been pretty bad at it. He might have to win here, though. I'm
You know what
open.
I'm saying? That
I'm
you're
praying.
not going to understand me.
I really am.
Take
I mean-
everything to heart.
She
Yeah,
seems
you
like
want
a,
that
she seems
smart.
like a decent girl. I mean,
You want that smirk off your face.
Now,
Yeah,
let's
I
get
was
started
raised
on this
right.
thing about
I haven't caught her in any
okay.
bullshit story lies or anything like that. So
I bought the car
Right,
sight
right.
unseen, okay? I had it dollied up
Let
to
me tell
my
you something,
house
Chris.
Ow.
2 years ago, okay? In the middle of winter, dead of winter.
If you don't fucking drive her
The
crazy.
guy took it off the dolly in my driveway. I paid $2,500
These are the shit I
for it,
deal with on a
plus
daily basis.
$500 to have him dolly it up.
I deal with it all the time. I know.
And I felt the valve covers, they were warm.
Put your
The guy
fucking
told me the
pants
car didn't
up.
run.
Ain't
Right.
no, listen.
So
This
me
is
being
gonna tell
as
you
thick-headed as
that-
I am, I'm thinking,
that
yeah, well, maybe sometimes
It's impossible
people
that him putting
go
smoke
around.
caused him to have a heart attack.
And,
The
you
boys
know,
gonna tell you in this
they're
video.
only speaking half truth.
Milky.
Fucking
So, sure enough, there's
You're gonna be
videos of it
fucking
on
weird on
my
back
page
from
on
here.
YouTube. The next day I went
You
and
just said I
got
had big
all
breasts
the
since
oils
you
and
let
everything
her
else it needed. and
Then
put
he's
it
gonna
in.
say he only smokes a half
Sure
pack
enough,
a
the car
day.
started.
And during this
Didn't
video,
have
he
to do
smokes
anything
5
to it.
different cigarette butts that you know
My
he dug
biggest
out of the
mistake
trash.
was I
He
might
Hey,
have
touched
put
it.
You used to
almost
smoke,
mystery
didn't you?
oil in
No.
the cylinders.
So you just went straight to
when I
vaping.
started,
Yeah.
you know, before I started the car,
Wow.
just to give it some extra lubrication.
What?
Typical
I didn't notice the sticker,
fuck you.
1976. Well, folks, that
Actually,
sticker
will you go
was
get my
legit
vape though?
because it sat
Am I
that
stressing
long.
out that much?
And what
Holy
happened
shit.
was is those pistons deteriorated.
That's not how it works,
Okay.
dude. You're a
And
dumbass. Did
without
they
putting
sit out in the
the
weather? I mean,
mystery oil,
I've seen engines that
and
sit
unbeknownst
uncovered
to
without
me,
heads on for 30
I
fucking
did
years, and the
not
pistons are
know
still
that the
pistons.
number one spark plug
You're a fucking
wire
moron, dude.
was in the number 8 place on the distributor cap. That should have been one dead giveaway. Okay. After starting it the first time and driving it back and forth for a couple minutes in my driveway, there was no problem. You know, it would sound normal and everything else. But then when I turned it off and tried to start it again, it was giving me a problem, like it wasn't starting. And if it was timed right, and if everything was correct, it would have fired right over.
Okay,
It wouldn't
first
have
of all,
cranked
if it
and
started the
cranked and
first
cranked
time,
and
then
felt
the
like
timing
it
had to be
was, you know,
somewhat
being
close,
forced to
right?
start.
If it started ran great,
Which is
Tommy
ultimately
just
what it did.
undo
It ran
itself.
again. But then, you know, as I'm walking
Sounds
around the
sensible.
back of it, you can see that there's smoke coming out of the exhaust. That's fine, that's normal, right? Until you go to the exhaust tips and you see all this gray slime shit on the bottom of the
Gray slime
exhaust
shit on
pipe
the exhaust.
end itself.
there you go.
That should have been red flag number 2, okay? But I didn't pay attention to that either.
So
I
the
was
car
just
since
more
it's
happy and
1975,
full
the
that
exhaust
the
is
car
all
ran,
perfect.
you know?
Mm.
So, as the days progressed,
That was dead.
it got worse and worse and worse to the point where the car wouldn't run anymore.
Come on, buddy.
So that's when
Oh.
I started, you know, asking for help or whatever, you know, because I wasn't sure. I've never been that far in depth with a car engine in my life.
No,
I mean, I've done,
really?
like I said, when I
Holy
was a
shit.
teenager, I worked in a body shop or
Another Barry
a repair
Beamer.
shop.
And here in a minute, he'll tell you
Stuff
he's
like
an
that.
expert
I
body
worked in
man,
a
but
couple
listen to
of
how he
garages here and there.
explains why he used the
I
rivets
worked
and how he's going to
for,
put pounds in.
what is it, a couple tire companies. I worked for a bus company. I
Barry
worked,
Beamer.
You know, in the garage with them. I did body work. So, you know, as far as the John Wilburn mentality is my engine skills and my body work probably outdo you, John.
I doubt that.
because-
And I don't know the
Yeah,
name,
okay.
but I
Rattle
seriously
cans you
doubt
can make
that.
fun
Shit.
of. Okay.
My 6-year-old could out body work
You have to
you.
wet sand,
I'm
Listen
mad
to
at
this.
and there's a certain way of wet sand.
Oh yeah, it's got to be a certain way.
And you bring the pigmentation down to it's like really dull. And then what
Like
you
you?
do
Is
is
that
you
what
use this
happened?
stuff
Is that
called
the point of wet
machine
sand?
glaze. It's made by 3M. It's called Perfected.
What about
3.
Wizards? What
Okay.
about Mothers?
I have a
What
DeWalt
about,
polisher out there that has
3M is good
variable
shit.
speeds
There's different
from
grits.
1,000 to 3,500 RPM.
I never seen a spur in your
You
hand,
use
so
that
you obviously don't know how to use a wool
In
pad if
order
you
to
don't have
get this
spurs.
into
Way to
what
fuck
little
that pad
is
again.
left as far as the dullness of the pigmentation. It gets rid of the
Why
orange
every time I
peel,
look
John.
at you
That's
do
the
I
reason
keep
why you
going?
wet
My
sand.
eyes keep going to your
No,
mole.
dude, that's
Anybody
not
else
the only
listen to
reason you
Or
wet
warp,
sand.
whatever it
Yeah, I
is.
may seem a little
That is
sarcastic
a reason
right
to
now,
wet
but
sand,
I'm
but
remembering
there's
these things that
30
these people are
reasons to
saying
wet
to
sand.
me. That my
And if
body
it's a single stage
skills,
paint
as
job,
far as body
if it's a
building
heavy
goes,
metallic or a pearl, you
match
can't wet
to
sand it.
my engine abilities. Let me tell you something.
So,
Now, JB, never minding what you said about calling me stupid, because I'm not. I know you're not calling me stupid. Okay.
I don't
Here's
know.
the funny
I'm
thing.
calling you stupid.
If I was such a moron,
Hey, my
John,
dog laying on the floor that's sick right
ASL.
now is fucking smarter than you.
why in the world would I ever be able to take this car that far apart and
My
put it back
kid,
together?
what do you mean? Austin had to rebuild a small block in shop class in school. Well, you act like you're 50 fucking 4 years old, man.
Listen, folks.
I mean, that was his final exam, was
Yep.
to take apart a small block and put it all back together.
Yep.
That's what they had to do. On his own.
Yep. No
At
help.
17.
So I want to explain something though.
Keep in mind, this is in the shop class, so he's got 2 or 3 hours a day in this class for a semester, and he rebuilt it. So, you don't stop acting like it's an amazing feat that you've done this, dude. Because you fucked it up when you did it in the first place.
Okay,
I
listen.
mean, you put two different pistons in them, did all the rest, and wonder why it's not ever going to run right.
2 sets of head gaskets.
Yeah, I mean, because you think a head gasket goes on the head. It goes on the block, dumbass. It would have never buckled, no matter what you did. Now, I guess you could have dropped the head on it in the corner, gouged into the gasket or something. But if you put it on the block, or if your dowels was in your head, you needed to take the dowels out of your head to put them back in your block. I mean, you have Google, and you have Wi-Fi. There's no excuse for you to have any of the problems you're having.
Oh, you
Besides,
you're
it's
diabetic.
ignorance. That's why I'm saying he's
You're
ignorant.
diabetic.
Keep my sugars up.
So, listen, folks. Working on a car is mostly memory. If you can pull a bolt out, remember where that bolt goes, remember how it goes in, then you could do it.
And listen, this ain't 1990, 1999. This ain't even 2005. Back then, if you didn't know something, you had to go to the library, pull out one of the reference books, find what you're looking for, run a copy because you got to check out a reference
You
book.
come sick.
Now you can just get on the old Googles, on the interwebs, and type in whatever you want and find step-by-step instructions to do whatever it is you're doing. I mean, hell, you can even go further in most cases, and there's a fucking video explaining it. I mean,
Where's your sugar tester?
I don't-
So, the main moral of the story is, like Barry Beamer would say, well, he acts like Barry, that's what I'm getting at. Barry acts like it's an amazing feat to put a fucking 455 in a Buick that could have came factory with one. So, let's get into this.
I had no mechanical abilities at
I mean, you
all
can't even get basic
whatsoever.
engineering. Look at your
I
shelf.
mean,
Behind
knew
you.
nothing. I'm
Oh, yeah,
talking
it's
about a
buckling.
guy who knows barely about how to take lug nuts off.
Just 10
Okay.
minutes ago, you was talking about you knew how to do
Why
body
would I
work
know
and
what
everything else. Now you
every
don't know how
part
to
is?
do lug nuts.
There are pictures on my phone to this day, or in my files on Facebook, that show the heads right next to where I'm sitting. And the tools that I'm using
Babe,
are so cheap
How would you feel if I brought
that
a
they
cylinder head in the
broke or
garage
they bent out
and busted it down on our
when I was
dining room
trying to take
table?
the valve
You're-
keepers
I
out.
kicked
They
you in the
bent
Yes,
because the
keepers.
keepers was
Yeah, it's a
stuck
little
in
thing,
there.
you know,
You said the
and
motor's
you
full of
remove-
gunk.
Like I was
Spring
scraping
and,
grease
you know,
off
you
under
drop
a brand new
the valve
dining room
out.
table.
The little keepers are in there.
You
right
shouldn't
at the
have to
tip.
push extremely hard on
Or
a
Or you
bike
came home and seen your
to get it
fucking
through.
your
You're gonna
sink
get
full of
upset.
gasoline with a cylinder that's sitting in it.
Okay.
That'll fuck with the shit up.
If I'm so stupid, why would I know how to do that?
What do you think about
If I'm
chewing
so
on cigarette?
You
stupid-
didn't know how
Now,
to
this
do it.
is
That's
the
what I was
other
trying to say a minute ago.
That
But
I'm
I
kind of
mean,
going around in circles here, battering around. See where I'm going? Like,
you should never have to
sometimes
push,
I don't
like,
stay,
lean on a
uh,
valve spring
attention
compressor to get to
minded
release
to one thing.
keepers.
My
If it's
mind's
not
everywhere.
releasing, they're stuck. You need to tap on them.
Morning sickness.
TB blast or something.
Now,
You push so hard,
If
you
that
bent the
piston
compressor. You bent the valve spring
was
compressor.
the one that I
I'd kill
put
you.
in, which
Huh?
it wasn't,
I'd kill you.
because if you look at the dark one right next to it, it's a flat top.
No shit,
The one
Sherlock.
that shattered in 4
Another
places
thing
is
that makes
also
you
a
an
flat
idiot.
top. And if you see my later pictures, you'll see me using a piston installing tool.
A ring compressor?
And the piston that's underneath that installing tool
Well, he
is a
calls.
valve release piston.
Valve release.
It's a standard
Another thing
piston.
makes you a dumbass.
But
You
it's a
wanted to
valve
argue with the
release.
man
I
over
still
that.
have 7 of them.
Valve
in here.
relief.
Okay?
It's a relief
I don't
for the
even
valve to
place
go a
two.
little deeper into the piston.
I didn't do
You don't
all.
release the valve from the piston.
The reason being is because all the other ones, after I did all the work, with the timing chain, the new pistons, pressed off the old piston apron, and put the new pistons on.
Another thing that makes you a
Press and
fucking
everything
idiot.
else. Yes,
Did you
I
heat the
had
rod
one
when you
done
pressed
by
it out?
somebody else, and then I said, you know
Probably
what?
not.
Why should I pay somebody $65 when I can do this myself? I go and
Because they probably had a rod
pay
roller.
for a $65, press tool, and I did it myself. So I figured, why should I pay
And
somebody
you
else?
fucked up the rod
I
by doing
wasted
it.
that money on the press and said, hell with them.
It's not the rod that it's sticky on. It's the piston.
So I did 2. I did number 2 and number 3.
Or
And then
I got
I
that
found
backwards.
out that the
Scratch that. I'm gonna-
intake valves,
Don't
because
listen
they
to that.
actually
It's bad
have
information.
a thinner stem than the exhaust valve. And I'll show you. I actually have some.
Oh,
of my
this
The
is
wrist band
glorious.
slides in the
I think
This
the
is
bent ones
glorious.
are in the junk drawer right
This
now.
is glorious,
or
dude.
the piston upper up.
This is fucking awesome, dude. Oh, this is gonna be great. This proves Rich is a fucking idiot right here.
Once you see these valve spring compressors, you know how hard he had to lean on that to get that to bend that motherfucker like that?
Yep.
I mean, the keepers were stuck. Man, I've had it happen here 25,000 times in my life. They get stuck. Or he was doing something totally wrong.
Okay,
He's going to tell you that he had double valve springs in a minute, too. So,
let's see.
you mean you
All
had
right,
a
folks.
single valve spring with a damper?
These are exhaust valves. Okay, they're not bent. These are intake
He's
valves.
in there watching TV.
See how they're wider?
Yeah, but why ain't there no nicks on them or anything? If the
Okay.
piston beat the hell out of it, then why ain't there no nicks? Or
Scooby-Doo.
shiny spots or...
There's no way.
The base underneath in this exhaust valve is wider.
I was
Up
just
in
in there,
here.
babe.
See
I
this?
just left
Listen,
it there.
Wherever my finger is. You see how thin it is on that one?
Do you guys
All right,
know
Dad.
why? Do you know the real reason why that valve is wider on the exhaust? Why they're built bigger than the intake? Anybody out there that works on cars probably already knows this, but it's because your exhaust puts out heat, a lot more heat. It has to take a lot more heat than your intake does. So they can get away with making the intake valve thinner than the exhaust valve. Because as gas comes in a little bit, it cools that valve a little bit. The moral of the story is it doesn't take as much temperature as the exhaust valve does. I mean, it's simple to prove me, to understand what I'm saying. Take your thermometer after your car runs, hit it on the fucking exhaust side, and then get the reading and hit it on the intake, on the top of the intake, right where the gas goes in. You'll get 2 different temperatures. I mean,
Dumbass.
Okay? That's the reason why these didn't bend.
no.
These did.
That's
Now,
not. The reason, listen, the reason them valves couldn't be down in the same cylinder at the same time, how would that work?
How
would
would you have
how would you
compression?
get compression? How would you pull gas into the cylinder?
You have no idea
If,
what I'm
if your
talking about.
fucking exhaust valve was open on the
care
downstroke,
too.
then how the fuck would it pull in any fuel? If your exhaust valve was open on the upstroke,
Keep it up on
how the
here, on
fuck
my
would
knees,
you would have
hold on.
exhaust shooting out of your fucking carburetor? I mean, no, that's not why, Rich.
You're an idiot.
They're
Rich.
never open at the same. Technically, they are for a split second, but not down. They're not all the way down
They're dick.
because as one valve snaps back, the other one's coming up, and so technically, but the moral of the story is they're never open all the way at the same time in a cylinder. In a single cylinder.
let's see.
This is why people is calling you stupid, Rich. Just so you know.
And they're not wrong.
I mean, those could be bent just from years and many, many miles
Not a
in
bit,
heat cycles, dude.
Now, if you watch,
If
you
you
can see it
want.
wobbling.
You would lay it on a straight,
That's how
on
I knew
something
it was
flat,
bent.
Rich.
That's one of them.
And take
This
meds
is
out.
not.
Take them ibuprofen out. We'll use them.
Yeah, these are used valves.
So you can take another one.
Okay? The guy I got them from
This is Rich here. This is funny.
I'm no longer friends with on
This guy
Facebook.
sends him free parts,
Okay.
but he don't like the
The
information.
reason
about it,
being
so
is because he was
starts
talking
about it.
nonsense about white lithium grease being put on bearings and, using that for the valve.
Well, if he did it and it works for him, then
It
so
didn't
be
sound
it.
right. Then he started talking
You want
about
that
putting
something
this
for
thing on number 6 when it's supposed to be on the compression stroke, which I've always been taught throughout the years that your top gear is supposed to be pointed at number 6. Like
Okay,
6
Rich,
o'clock.
I want to call bullshit right here.
Okay,
Because
look at.
you just said 5
And
minutes ago
bottom
you
gear is
barely knew
supposed
how to
to
take a
be
button
pointed
off
at
a
number
car.
12.
So how would you
That's
ever
the way
been
I
taught about
was
time?
always taught. I was never taught to do 12 and 12. Okay, I never heard of that. And I never heard of taking the distributor out on the compression stroke and dropping it in on 6. I never heard of that either. Why would you want to beat around the bush in order to get your point across correctly? It just doesn't make any sense.
What you just said don't make
Okay,
sense.
but here's the thing. If everybody thinks that I'm so stupid and that I'm messing with their heads and everything else, okay?
I don't know what you mean
Let
by
me
messing
answer
with their
that.
heads. Maybe they think you're
First of
playing
all,
a
I'm
game.
not messing with anybody's heads.
Pretending to be this
Okay?
dumb because nobody
John
can be this
Wilburn,
dumb.
what he did was he made fun of me, poking fun at me and everything else. I let that go, but every time it gets brought up, I feel that I need to
I
defend
swear I've
myself.
seen that man
And
trying to
ASL,
talk to
if
you
you have a
about your
problem with
mortgage
that,
on a live,
tough.
dude, and you just kept lying.
John,
to
if
him.
you
He
have
kept
a
asking the
problem
same
with
question
that,
over and
tough.
over and over
Okay? I
until
don't care.
finally you couldn't back whizzling
You
around the
got your
question where you
people
had to
bringing
answer
this
it.
up.
And you said,
I don't care who
my
they
credit's
are.
fucked up. That's what
I'm
he was
going
trying
to
to get
defend
at.
myself every time.
You can't do this shit because your credit's fucked up.
Because
What you
the
tell people
things that
is,
you guys
they already
did,
did a loan modification for your
they're not-
dumbass. 3 months.
They're not
before.
acceptable.
And
That's
they-
just
you
like,
didn't make the payments
that's like
for 3
going
months.
into a job
After
with a
the
bunch of
modification was
women
made.
and saying
Why
sexually
would they modify
explicit
it
jokes
again?
to them. You know damn well you're going to get fired. Okay?
Not that it's not wrong.
That's the kind of
How
thing I'm
it's
talking
wrong?
about. They consider it sexual harassment. Well,
How about
I
you should treat
call it
people with
harassment when
respect?
you're doing the shit that you did to me. Okay? If I was such a moron and didn't know what I was doing and had no brains and knew nothing at all about cars,
Hallelujah.
okay?
That's the first
Except for a
honest thing
couple
you
little
said.
tiny things I might get a little confused about. Tiny things.
Yeah, because of your
That
anxiety
wind up
and
making a
you see it take it backwards.
big freaking thing out of nothing. Okay? Like the compression. Sometimes I see things backwards, and I always thought that the actual pistons were supposed to reverse. Like you have
Pistons supposed to
on your
reverse.
first
Listen to this.
piston, you have
He's talking about valves,
your
folks.
intake is first and your exhaust is second. Well, I thought the next one was
You don't
supposed
have
to
an
be the other way
intake
around.
piston and an exhaust
Your
piston.
exhaust is first and your intake is second. And then it goes around again like this. That's the way I always thought it was. Well, I could be wrong. Some cars, maybe they're not made that way.
On a small block Chevy.
But that's the kind of things that go through my
Ends
head.
are exhaust.
So
your two
while I'm
wheels are
thinking of
exhaust.
that and I'm concentrating on the job at
I
hand,
mean,
I'm actually thinking in that perspective.
look how the manifold goes
It
off.
doesn't mean I'm
Exhaust manifold.
stupid.
That's where your exhaust valves
It just means that's the way I
are. One
see
on each
things
end of their head and two in the
backwards.
middle.
Okay?
Each head.
Now, the ability of somebody being a moron, as some people call me, or some people call me stupid, has got to be defended as well, because no moron or stupid or dumbass or anything else of that
Hey,
matter
I'm the biggest
with a low
dumbass on the
IQ
fucking planet.
is ever
I'm a
going to be able to
fucking
put these
fucktard.
cars together and know
Straight
what
up.
the parts are.
I fucked shit up. Man, I cut two of my own damn fingers off for crying
Not
out
as
loud.
far as what I've
I
done,
mean,
especially while the engine's still in the car, attached to the transmission.
Yeah, Rich, I want to see you do it on
I
a
don't
car
have
that
an
has a
engine
cross
stand,
member,
folks.
bud.
I don't have a paved driveway, folks.
You don't need none of that. I don't
I
either.
barely have an engine hoist. Why I bought that, I have no idea.
You don't need an engine stand to rebuild a motor, man.
It's
You should be able to do it on the
pointless
ground.
without
I
an
mean,
engine
on your table. On the engine
And the
stand.
thing
on
that
the-
I
on
do
the
have is a
trigger.
carport.
I mean,
But I can't even get the car to start up and long enough to get it in there. And the carport's really too narrow for me to
you're
work
a
underneath
walking
it.
excuse. If it ain't the tools you're blaming,
Right?
it's people
And
for
I
bad
can have
information.
lights all
It's
from
your
the ceiling.
health.
That's wonderful.
I mean-
Great, perfect, no problem. But what good is it if I can't get up underneath the car? Okay? So, let's see. Yeah, I'm not playing.
It's
I'm
the
not playing
bank's
mind
fault,
games with
it's not
anybody. I don't have
yours,
any
I
reason
mean-
to. There's no reason for me to do that. I have anxiety issues. I sometimes see
people
things
do.
backwards. So this way, you guys know.
You mean you're
Okay.
not dyslexic? You keep trying to say
I
you're
have
dyslexic. You're not
arthritis
dyslexic.
right at my heel, like where the ball joint
Check
is
this
in
out.
your
We
foot,
went to arthritis now.
your
Now
ankle,
it's
and
arthritis in your
your
hip.
leg, that area there. I
Anybody
have
your age is
arthritis in
getting
my right
arthritis,
foot.
dude.
The
You act like
colder
you're
the weather
special.
gets, the worse it gets to stand on.
I mean,
And I'm talking pain. like somebody's jabbing you with a knife.
Man, unless
okay?
you have stenosis inside,
And then I have the lower back issue where I should really be on disability because, you know, I can't work a job where I'm standing long.
Because
the other
you're
thing
fucking
that I have
750
is
pounds
I
and smoke
was
3
in the
packs a
hospital a
day.
couple of years ago.
I mean,
I had a heart attack.
you've done all this to
Okay.
yourself. The heart
I
attack,
have a
your
stent
fault.
in my arteries.
Being
I'm
heavy
overweight.
set, your fault.
I know I'm fat. Big deal. I can't help it.
Yes, you
Okay?
can. That's decisions you made.
The doctors almost killed me because they told me that I was diabetic.
This
I'm
is-
not.
Yes.
Hypoglycemic.
Listen to this.
And if I were to have taken those pills much longer, I would have been dead. Okay, I would not have been alive.
Listen
Because
to
the
this.
next
I mean,
diagnosis like
the
that
man says
can really
that he's hyperglycemic.
Really?
He's not diabetic. They gave him pills because they said he's
change your
diabetic.
course of life.
He's saying he's
Let's put it
not,
that way.
and he's hyperglycemic,
The
but
minute
you
I
don't
stopped
require
taking
medication.
and the
He is an
minute I
idiot.
started
He is a
having a little
moron.
bit of sugar
If
in
you're
order to level
hyperglycemic,
off.
you are going to take medication so you don't become a diabetic because that's what it turns into is diabetes.
Now, I'm supposed to have high
Hyperglycemia
blood
means
pressure.
pre-diabetes.
That's because of the arteries and, you know, the
Okay.
heaviness, okay? My breathing problem is compromised because I have what they call a heart murmur. Or
Now he's got a heart
you know,
murmur on top of everything else.
the
I mean,
skipping of the beat of the heart.
if you had a heart murmur, they'd be watching that shit. You wouldn't just be fucking out here all willy-nilly.
Which is caused.
My sister-in-law has just dealt with that. Man, she had to have her heart stopped to restart it. My cousin
the
died from
anxiety
this
issues
shit.
don't help. Okay? They don't help at all. I know that.
I mean,
But sometimes
people like you
I get
piss
so
me off
annoyed,
because you got
sometimes
all
I
this
get so
fake
pissed
bullshit.
that I just,
About his Beamer claim he's got
what else
cancer.
can you do? You know, I mean, you gotta let it out. And release it and let it go. So, okay, so first of all, here's what I've done with the car since I found out it didn't run after a couple of times. I took the heads off. Okay?
Wouldn't the first time you
Went out
knew you
and
could
bought
run
a
a compression
clean
test before you pulled
I went
heads?
out and bought a sandblast cabinet. I went out and bought a manual tire changing so-called machine. It's not a machine when you're working on it yourself manually. I had a compressor. Well, I have a compressor. I have the hose. I have 2 tool chests full of. Well, I've been getting some decent tools from.
Harbor Freight, right?
What the hell's the name of that store?
I got no problem with Harbor Freight tools, folks. I mean, don't get that wrong. I mean,
You know,
I buy
the-
tools from there all the time.
The
I don't buy
Harbor Freight,
ratchets from
that's
there
it.
though, and things
And
like
I've got
that.
a couple
you know.
tools from Busted Radio Garage. So, you know, not all the tools are bad now, but I'm still, I got to get new ones because the ones that I do have out there,
For many years when I worked on
I
cars,
have,
man,
like,
especially my
wrench
kids, I
ratchets,
didn't have
you
money
know,
for tools, man.
and half
One
of them
time
work.
I got a
bought
Craftsman
them from
toolbox
Sears years
from
ago.
fucking
I bought
Sears,
pack sockets from Sears.
and it was a little black box
I had
that
like
4
4
red
sets
drawers
of
in it, man, and
They're all the bigger ones.
I thought I was king shit with that toolbox. Because before that, I had mismatched sockets, a crescent wrench, some vice grips, and some engine
You know,
screwdrivers.
that's just like
And that's
some
what I worked on
things that
cars with when the Austin was
normally
flew.
use on a
Because I didn't have money to go get any other
That
tools. There was no
mentioned,
Harbor Freight then.
you know,
You could get Buffalo
tools
tools. That was
use
just
so
generic
much
back
they're worn
then.
out.
Don't you bullshit the
And I
map.
wouldn't use a generic ratchet.
But what I've done
Because
is
I don't like busting my fucking knuckles.
Don't you bullshit the map.
after everybody's
Oh,
seen the
he blames tools.
piston,
In 3 videos I've seen him say, "Oh, you gotta have good
that was
tools."
packed in 4 different
Now
places.
everybody has money
It
for
was
good
held in by
tools,
the rim.
and they still do good mechanic work.
It was separated from the apron, and the valves. I mean, when the push rod was pushing it up, the push rod was still in the middle, or not the push rod, the connecting rod. See what I mean? The connecting rod was still in the middle of the apron, pushing the top
Listen,
up.
if your car was running with that piston like that, it would have made a hell of a racket, and it would only ran for a couple minutes before the top of that piston exploded and went all through the bottom of your motor. Facts. That's facts.
Yeah,
Your
why
car
do
did
they
not
do
run
this?
for an hour like
That's the
that.
reason why they don't
It did not
bend.
happen.
And this thing is so narrow.
I mean,
that's the reason why they do
If
that.
nothing else, you would have heard it beat in there. At the very least, you would have heard
I
it.
mean, but you know,
Yeah,
the car's
the
65
piston
years
is-
old.
But the rod would have been slapping the top of the piston, and the top of the piston would
So
eventually turn
anyway,
sideways and hit at the
I
very least.
replaced 2 of these,
I mean,
both intakes, number 2 and number 3. Okay, and
your car
replaced
don't run
the
with
head
2, you
gaskets.
just bust it off pistons like that and be quiet.
The timing chain, the gears. At that time, I didn't know it was the valves. I had to take it apart again anyway, so I didn't know the valves were bent at that time. So I don't know how, but it ran. It ran even with the bent valves. They are bent. You can tell it. I mean, I can sit there and wall.
I mean, there's a simple way, a cheap
You
way
know, and you'll see it like.
for people that don't have the skills, the tools, or whatever. There's a
in any
cheap,
event,
easy
it's
way to
great.
find out if your valves are
The
short or not.
intake, number 2 and
If
number
you
3.
pull your
are
intake
great.
off on a small block Chevy,
So
take
after I
gasoline,
placed,
fill the
number
intake port with gasoline,
3,
and see how long it takes
I didn't
that
know
port.
about
It should
that.
hold it for a long time.
I didn't
It
take
should hold
that
that liquid
side
for a
off.
long time. If it drains out
Um,
real quick in your cylinder, you
then
know
I
you
found
got a
out that
fucking
there was a
cylinder
problem
problem.
with that one, so I took that head off.
Same on the exhaust.
And I
You do the same
figured
with
at
the
that
exhaust
point,
valve.
well,
It's a little
I
more
might as well
difficult.
just go full throttle and, clean the heads of every bit of sludge or whatever that was in them. And there's pictures of that too. There's pictures of the head on the passenger side and the one on the driver's side, before and after shot. It was so badly baked in there that it was caked up.
Exactly.
So it
That's
needed
why
to
your
be
keepers was stuck in
soaking
your
for a
valves.
couple of days. All right.
And your keepers were stuck in your retainers.
Then I got the tools. I still have a couple of the tools over there too, as far as the hell they call those, the valve removal tools.
Valve spring compressor.
Valve spring removal.
Then he's going to go into
Whatever
this
it
is
is.
metric, and
Be
you
right
got to have
back. Hold on, I'll
standard.
show you.
He's nuts. He's out of his fucking board.
Okay.
Man.
They're called valve spring removal
No,
tools.
they're called valve spring compressors.
Well, I bought 2 of them off of eBay, and they were garbage. Here's one of them
Look,
right here.
look how much he bent this tool.
And you can see
You know
how
how
far
hard he had to push to bend that motherfucker?
it's stretched.
I mean,
I can't even
Holy
get it in the box
shit.
anymore.
I mean, you
Yeah,
should have
cheap
known
that was
something was
made.
wrong. When that tool started to
The other
bend and that
problem
spring
is-
did not release,
Yeah.
you should have known that them keepers was stuck.
Little things that are supposed to hold the spring in
There we
place,
go with the metric shit.
so
Watch
you
this.
can remove the keepers. They're all metric.
What does hold on? What the
None
fuck?
of them are
What the
on
fuck does that
domestic
have to do with
sizes.
anything? As long as they're
30
bigger
millimeter,
than the
25
keepers,
millimeter.
that's all that matters.
23 millimeter,
As long as
19
they're big enough,
millimeter,
your keepers
and
and your valves
16.
seem to pass through that. That's
Never
all
said
that
that
matters.
on the ad.
You got like a standard one in it.
So what I have to do is, if I'm ever going to use these again, which is like not going to happen, just see how far that one's out. So I have to pound the hell out of it back to
That's
its
what you
original
should have did to
position.
your keepers when you was pushing
Yeah,
down on it.
obviously
Pound the
that
hell out of it,
happened
put some
anytime
picture
soon.
going on.
But that wasn't the
It would
first
never
one.
happen.
It wasn't the only one we used.
I mean, you have to put some
This
pressure
one
on it,
didn't
guys,
get-
but you're
get
not
to
going to.
be
If
as
you have
bad,
to
but
lean
you
on
can
it,
see
something's
right here.
wrong.
It's poking out of the box.
It's a spring, folks.
Same
Crying
problem.
out.
Yep.
It's hanging under the top there. It doesn't even. It don't work
Okay,
either, and this
I'm
is still
confused,
metric
though.
sizes.
If they're
Well,
just
nothing
like
domestic in here.
What does metric have to do with it? It has nothing.
that wasn't bad enough.
Nothing.
Okay.
It's not a nut head or a bolt,
I went to the auto parts store
Huh?
huh?
and borrowed one,
You hear me?
the valve spring compression tool.
Why keep them for junk?
When I brought it back,
He's a
it
horror,
broke
dude. That's what
because
horrors
they
do.
used
Like they're junk. I would throw them out.
impact
Well, it would
material
never
for
happen.
tightening
I
down.
wouldn't have.
Where you want to go as far as taking the valve
I
out.
would have thought there's something wrong because I mean it
But
should
the
move.
actual
I mean,
block that it threaded into
it's
was
just a
made out of
spring.
aluminum. I'm sorry, but those materials are not the same standard of strength.
You're nuts, dude. The boy's
They
A-arms on
don't
his
use
dart
impact
are
material on
still.
aluminum. I think you're going
What's
to get it.
Malodon do to their coat? What
last.
coating does Malodon put on their wheels?
So I brought it back, and I went and got another one.
You know what I'm talking about?
And that
The
one
gold
did the
coating?
same thing.
Your A-arms are that
But at least
coated
at that time I
steel
was able to
screwed
get
into
them
aluminum
out
hind joints.
before bringing the tool back. And I'm
mean-
glad that I didn't have to pay the $86 for it. Because I'm on a very tight budget. I mean, yeah, you guys are like, oh, you live in a house. Yeah. 3 months behind on my mortgage, folks.
Get off your fucking
I only
ass
made
and
about,
work.
what, half the payments because I can't afford it?
I mean, because you're fucking lazy.
Look,
You want to
Dad,
sit
I
there
don't
and
have
chain
no
smoke
magic
these
egg.
cigarettes,
But I
sucking
can
down
pull out of my
fucking coffee.
backside in order to pay it either. I really don't.
Rich thinks. Okay, you guys. So I'm gonna pause.
I
We're
live
gonna
from
talk
check
for a
to
minute.
check just like everybody
I
else.
mean, he wants to sit here and suck on these cigarettes, talk about I got all these health problems, but he's not an active person. He don't do anything to better his life. He sits and complains and gets mad because nobody will do anything for him or help him. But the man refuses to help himself. He does nothing to help himself. Nothing.
Alright, you guys. So, Dad, Rich said he offered $5,000 for his '57 Chevy, right?
He should have jumped.
Okay, $5,000 for that piece of shit, right? Here's one in I think I pronounced this right. Metro, Ohio. It'll be on our community page. It's a '57 Chevy. It is $3,895 is what they want for it. It has everything Rich's car has, except one thing.
6-cylinder car.
No, it's even a V8.
Yeah.
It's dual mirrors factory, which is an option. It's a Bel Air. It's a 4-door. It needs some work, but
Yeah,
it's
but
all there.
Rich's car, man, any body work he's done, you're going to have to go back over and take out and redo because of the way he does it.
And it says or best offer. This is a factory dual mirror car. Option for dual mirrors. Factory V8 automatic transmission. Rich's car. Factory two-tone black and white. Which
There's a name for that. When they're black and white, there's a name for that.
Which, my opinion of this does not say this. Maybe it was a cop car one time to have dual mirrors and to be black and white. Maybe it was a police car.
There's a. I forget
But
the name of the car. There's a black.
there's
and white. 57s when they're black and white, they're called something.
Something I've learned. Black Widows, I think is what they call them.
I can't think of what it is. It could be.
Guy in Canada, Dan, he did one. But I want to say this. In the United States, any car that's painted black, I don't care if it's a new car or an old car, when that car was that car was straight. The body, that was the straightest car they could have picked because they painted it black.
I mean, that's 100% true. If it's a black car and it's off the assembly line, they're going to be a lot more careful with it. It's going to show a lot more.
Now that doesn't mean anything, but Rich thinking that his pile of shit is worth fucking $5
Chrysler
grand.
had a big problem from fucking 63 up to fucking at least Austin's dark 73 year with getting
Runs.
big ass runs on the inner aprons under the hood.
in
I
the
mean,
base.
big ass runs, man.
My electric bill is usually $37.
Dad,
Jesus Christ,
Yeah.
Rich, you are blessed, dude.
So that
My
shows
light
you
bill
how
this
much
month
I
was
use electricity.
$400, dude.
There's a lot of things on now.
In the
right
wintertime,
now, but
it's
they're not going to
6
stay on for long.
for 14
And I eat
grand,
with wood.
folks.
That's it. Yeah, I know.
For 14 grand, okay, I'm scrolling to Marketplace right now, just looking. For 14 grand, you get a 57 Chevy 210, which isn't a Bel Air, I don't think. It's just it's the lower trim, but it has its original 6-cylinder V8 original 6-cylinder 3-speed automatic or 3-speed aftermarket wheels, runs, drives, shifts good. Beautiful car. I don't see any rust on it at all. Beautiful trim.
2-door or 4-door?
4-door. Same as his.
I think that's a lot still. I do.
14,000. But that gets you. That's a beautiful rust-free car.
Right.
Riches, you still have to do rust repair
Well, you're gonna have to fix all
and
this,
engine work.
especially when he tells you how he's about to fix the metal here in a minute. What the rivets are for. That's not all what happens on the assembly line. dude.
See, everybody's telling me about
I
the
mean-
smoking thing. Well, you shouldn't be smoking if you got so many
That's
brilliant,
true.
you know,